Hey babies, 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 babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Happy Friday, everybody. Hi everyone. Callo has 1 week until he runs a marathon. 1 week, Callo.
Wow, you're reminding me now. That's when
I'm
things are
excited
getting
for you.
real.
I know the work you've put in, so I'm excited for you, actually.
You're coming out, right? Right?
Yeah.
Are we gonna bring this on the air? Yes.
I talked to my wife about this. I said, I'm going to go support Callo, probably in Georgetown. He's doing the Marine Corps Marathon. I've noticed it's mile 5 where you run on M Street. That's a nice location for me to get from my house to park to hang out. You'll have to give me an estimated time of arrival on that one, mile 5. You'll have to let me know next week. You don't have to do that right now, but let me know next week what estimated time of arrival is so I get there in time. And then I'll probably get Archer to show up. And if he may act the way like when Cedric Mullins hit the home run in the elimination game against the Royals. He took his shirt off and ran around.
It's true.
So maybe he'll do that when you run by. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
He's more than welcome to run with me for a bit too. I mean, people do that all the time. So people do that. No, it's not like it's not allowed. You know, sometimes people need a little jump and they have someone run with them for a little bit. So
I will not run with you. Maybe Archer will. I will cheer you on. So that's my goal. I'm very excited for you because you put months and months and months of work into this. So this is going to be something.
A lot of canceled plans, a lot of I can't do anything tonight, a lot of those types of responses to people. But I can't wait to get it going. And by the way, I won't even have to tell you. You'll be able to track me. So like you could probably leave your house when I start the race, and you'll be there in time because it takes me. It'll probably average like a 10-minute mile for the first
10-minute mile, so an hour from the start.
Faster, but we'll see.
50 minutes. Yeah, 50 minutes. Okay. All right. Yeah. You sent me the map. I appreciate that. We're ready to go. I will not run with you, but I'll root you on. So I'm ready to go. Ready for that. All right. Let's see. Let's get into the game this weekend. Easy transition from Marine Corps Marathon to the Panthers and Commanders this weekend. All right. Let me give you the issue. I'll give you the one issue. I don't think there's a lot of them, but I'll give you the one issue. And you know me, I don't want to get too overconfident about anything because, we don't have a history of just winning, like it's not like we're the Chiefs. We haven't had that. So I'll give you the one issue, and that's this. Right now, John Allen's out for the year. Dorrance Armstrong, I guess we'll see. I don't know. Guess we'll just have to see. Javonte John Baptiste, to a lesser degree, out. So we're talking about rotational pieces being gone. And the one thing that Carolina is really good at and really strong at is they have a very good interior O-line. They paid for it. They paid like $150 million or whatever it was to get Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. But they are really, really, really strong on their offensive line, and they can really run the ball. And with Chuba Hubbard, they have a runner who is a very good straight line runner, who's averaging over 5 yards a carry, who's the third leading rusher in the NFL. It is the one thing that they do really, really, really well. And because of the injuries that Washington has, and because they've struggled against the run anyway, if I'm going to be concerned about one thing, it is that this weekend, that will they be able to limit the run? And can Carolina, not unlike the way Washington wanted to limit the Ravens' possessions last week, I'm sure Carolina wants to limit Washington's possessions this week because their defense, which I'll get to in a minute, has been really poor, ravaged by injuries, and seem helpless this weekend. But the one thing they can do is they can really run the ball. And so that'll be an interesting thing for Joe Witt and company to try to deal with this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's concern number one, especially with how does this team deal with the absence of John Allen? Like, we can say on paper that they've got these options behind them and they can do it by committee, but push comes to shove when the actual game happens. None of those guys are as good as him on per snap, right? So yeah, this is going to be a good first test to see how that, those backup defensive linemen by committee do.
Yes. There was a hint at what they're talking about, and I think it's more on passing downs than anything, but Joe Witt kind of let the cat out of the bag during his press conference yesterday, where he was like, we might move Johnny Newton down the line a little bit, like we have with Daron Payne down the line a little bit. So they are still looking at what could be a 3 defensive tackle type alignment. I remember last year that when Payne moved to the outside late in the season, he was actually very effective over there. He's kind of a weird mismatch for tackles because he's of the size that they don't like to deal with, and he's got speed. So we'll have to see how they play this a little bit. But the idea here is this with the run game. You want Chuba Hubbard to bounce. You don't want the one cut go. He's actually very fast, very decisive, and very effective when he runs in between the tackles and just kind of goes. But when he bounces, that's not his strength. So that's what I see on tape when I watch him. So this is what I want. Clog up the middle, make him bounce, eliminate a little bit of that speed. They're not as good. They're not like Washington blocking on the edges with their receivers and their other players. Let them do that. And I'll take my chances with that more than I will with him running straight ahead. Because if they get into a rhythm where they're running the ball straight ahead, they are going to limit possessions in this game. I still have a hard time buying them winning, honestly. But they could limit possessions and then weird stuff starts happening. And this team hasn't turned the ball over very much. And they haven't had a bad bounce yet. So that's why I'm I don't want to get into a game in the third quarter where all of a sudden it's lower scoring than I expected because the teams have had fewer possessions and it really starts and ends with Hubbard not being able to dictate the terms of it, which is running the ball up the middle of the field.
Yeah, you don't want it to be a close game where you have to grip it a little bit harder, where it's you have to score and they're having these long drives. I think this is what I started to worry about when I started looking into them is I get it. They are not the Ravens offense. Do not compare it, but
no, they're not. No, they're not.
But if they can run the ball successfully, they can have those longer drives that keeps Jaden off of the field. And then all of a sudden, like I've said, it would have to be a perfect game for them for it to go this way. But all of a sudden, if it's a one possession game and they have a misfire, Washington does, and all of a sudden they're down by 3 or 7 in the third or fourth quarter, it's just not something that we're going to want here. I could see where it gets dicey is what I'm getting at here.
When I saw these stats, I couldn't believe it on Andy Dalton. Get this one. With 3 passing touchdowns, so that'll happen over the next couple of weeks, he's going to pass Sonny Jurgensen for the 22nd most in NFL history, and he's under 1,000 yards away from passing Joe Montana for on the standings list of passing yards all time. So that's the kind of career that he's actually had. A lot of it is longevity. He had an incredible run with Cincinnati for all of those years. He's on the back 9 of his career. But I will say this about him and watching him, he's still effective. And when unbothered in the pocket, he's very good. And they do have a very good number 1 receiver in Deontay Johnson. I wouldn't, this is kind of like the when everybody talks about McLaurin, is he really a number 1? I'm like, he is on this team and he's kind of heart and soul and all that stuff. But I'll hear you that he's not Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill or all that stuff. Same thing with Deontay Johnson. If they do trade him, which I think a lot of people think they will, he's going to make somebody a lot better overnight. He's a very good, maybe not classic 1 receiver, but 1A. He's very, very good. I'm not scared much of their other weapons, honestly. But when they're quote unquote on time and Andy's kind of unbothered, the reason why he has the stats he has is he knows how to play and he's very accurate. It's when he's moving that it's when it all hell breaks loose with him. And even this many years in, it's not that he's immobile. He can move a little bit, but he's not fast. And he becomes wildly inaccurate and will throw picks. So, and I think Witt kind of hinted this yesterday too. He kind of let the cat out of the bag on this one. They're going to bring heat on him. And I don't think injuries on the defensive line, they've got no choice. And so this is one where you go, all right, this isn't the Ravens. Let's match up with their guys. You're going to tell these corners, you got to do a good job against Leggett or Deontay Johnson because we're going to bring heat because we think that Andy Dalton's going to make mistakes. So I expect a pretty heavy rush package. They're not going to sit back and wait. I think they're going to come after him this weekend.
No, I mean, it would make sense. I'm with you. The little that I've seen of Dalton, they look like a professional offense. It's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but him stepping in for Bryce Young, it was night and day that they were running an offense again. It wasn't just a guy showing up there. That's what Young looked like. I don't know what's wrong with Young, but with him stepping back in, they have a chance.
On Bryce Young, I talked to Anish Shroff. You can listen to an interview earlier this week on the podcast if you listen back to it. And he basically described it as that his confidence was shot early in the season. And that they did because this is second year, but it's new coach and the new coach is the quarterback whisperer. And I remember when they hired him, I went, you know what? That's probably the right guy to find out, can he play or not? And they still have a couple of years of runway with him to figure it out. He is on a rookie deal. They don't have to make a decision about him. I suppose if they don't feel comfortable with him playing at some point this year, they could talk about trading him in the offseason. But I assume because of their record, he's going to get back out there at some point. And at the end of the Bears game a couple of weeks ago when they were getting blown out, he did play a little bit, and it didn't look as bad. But Anish basically said, and I remember this with the Orioles. Remember Jackson Holiday came up and was awful. And then they were like, okay, you need to go back down, relax, get this out of your brain. I think the same thing was happening here. He came out, his first pass was an interception this year. It spiraled from there. Their offense was awful. They were averaging 6 points a game. It looked like a turnover on every single play. And so I think they did the right thing. And they're like, you watch this pro for a little while, and then we'll see where we are. And at 1-5 and hopefully 1-6, probably not in the too distant future, it will make no sense not to play him, right? Because the season's lost anyway. So it'd make no sense. So I think we're going to see him again. And part of me's like, I wish it was this week. And part of me's like, you know what? I actually know what I'm getting out of Dalton. I would rather it this way, honestly.
You also have the motivation factor too. Like I know Jaden was asked about him because they grew up together. So you also you don't really want that extra motivation. Not that I know that would change anything, but I'm good. I don't need to tempt fate on that. I'm with you.
All right.
Dalton is a robot. We know what he's going to do. So I'm perfectly okay with Dalton.
Yes. Let's see. For the offense, I would just say this. I do have an expectation that this team is going to score 30 plus. If you get ahead, it's another reason why you won't see a ton of Chuba Hubbard running the ball in the middle of the field, which I think is better. And, it's just a better outcome. I don't want a tight, close game. It's going to encourage them to do the one thing that they're actually good at. And the one thing that we're not really stopping very well, no matter whether it's Derrick Henry or not, we're not doing very well. So if we can get ahead in this game, and there's no way to project that, but if we can get ahead of this game, especially by 2 scores in the first half, I think it changes the dynamic. And then I think it starts to snowball on them. So at that point, I'd argue here, B-Rob assuming health, and I had heard last week, I was told that his knee injury wasn't particularly serious, but they felt like if he had played last week, he might have exacerbated the issue that he had, and then it would be something they'd have to maintain the whole year. So they made a choice to give him the week off, hopefully get his knee back in a spot where they feel more comfortable that he can last through the season. So they made a cognitive choice about him, which I think is the right one, honestly. I said this after the Baltimore game the other day. I'm like, it's a big deal he didn't play, but I really don't think he was the difference. I think they were throwing the ball either way against them, and they needed their defense to play a little bit better than it did. And B-Rob or no B-Rob, the outcome, in my opinion, would have been. So I actually think that the calculus they did on it was the right thing to get him ready. This is the week if he is fully back to healthy again. This is a 20 carry game for him. This is or 15 carries and 10 for McNichols. This is a big run game. I think we're back to the 50-50, if not more, or rush offense this week. And they'll take their chances where they take their chances, because I'll get into it about the back end of the Carolina defense, which is a mess. But you think our D-line's messed up? They are totally messed up. Their best player is Derek Brown. He got injured in week 1. I couldn't believe this stat when I saw this. He had 103 tackles last year. That's a defensive lineman. Had 103 tackles. That's an NFL record for any D-lines. No one talks about him like he's Aaron Donald, but he had an Aaron Donald season last year. He's not playing. Shaq Thompson's not playing. They're missing 3 other starters on their team. Their defense, which wasn't great coming in, is decimated. So, and if you go watch them the last couple of weeks on their run defense, it's a joke. I mean, they're getting pushed 3-4 yards down the line. So I expect 30 plus carries this weekend and B-Rob to get 15 to 20 of them.
No, I mean, that would be back to what has made this offense successful, right? Doesn't even matter who's back there at running back. It's been that whoever is back there starts getting 3, 4, 5 yards a clip and then breaks one. I think that's where this offense has missed it. Last week at least was where, Eckler had the one good pass in the first half, but the more impressive thing about this offense has been it doesn't matter what running back is back there. They all break one a game, and they didn't get that last week. I expect that to completely change this week.
Yeah. I thought Kingsbury said something interesting too in his press conference yesterday, which is I totally wholeheartedly agree with it. Being with the thing about being without Robinson last week, while I think game planning wise really wouldn't have changed much about what they did, And maybe they would have run the ball a little bit more than they did because it was Robinson and not the others. But I really think it would have been tilted pass run because I think they felt it was necessary. He described it as emotionally he mattered us because of the way he plays and the physicality he plays with and the joy he plays with. And I agree with that. I've described it as he's the gas in the tank. Like when they need something, when they need to calm everything down, they go to him and he delivers for them. Whether it's just a 3-4 yard run, it's almost never a negative play. Like he plays with a lot. He plays with kind of that want to play with very physical. Like so I agree with that. That like, and this is what I like. We don't know what you don't know what like the character of a team is going to be or what they're going to hang their hat on. I actually think they want to be a very physical team, even though they have this quarterback who's capable of doing all these incredible things. I think they deep down just want to be like, we're going to punish you. And B-Rob's epitomizes that. And so I agree that like he's, in my words, the gas in the tank for them. They want to be this. They want the whole team to be that. And it's a big deal when he plays, whether he has a 100-yard game or a 50-yard game. They want that out of him.
No, I that was my guess on Monday when after the game was I get it that he might not have made the biggest impact, but to me, he's like the de facto heart and soul. And I would say I went the opposite way when they played the Browns. As soon as it came out that he was playing against the Browns, I was like, they're done because that guy's going to go out there and want to play football more than any other player on that side of the ball. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think we're looking at the heart and soul of the offense here. Jaden is the one that is, the guy running everything, but it's B-Rob is the one that sets the tone, as I like to say.
Yeah. The other thing for the offense, like I believe that Washington should be able to run the ball pretty effective. I think they should be able to do whatever they want, honestly. I mean, Carolina's defense is so decimated by injury. It wasn't great coming in, and the ball just kind of snowballs on them. You've seen this the last couple of weeks where the teams, like, even after slow starts, they had it against Chicago, they had it against they had a quick start against Chicago, had a quick start against Atlanta, and then it just started to steamroll the other way. Atlanta, who's got a really, really good run game, was just destroying them on the ground by the middle of last week. Caleb had a few moments, and then the back broke on them, and then Swift all of a sudden was running the ball down their throat. I expect the same thing here. For the passing game, I would say this, because you'll see this a lot with them. Again, with all of these injuries, they're relying on some younger players. JC Horn's having a very good year. You're going to hear a lot about him at the trade deadline, especially up here if he is actually available, because he's had a lot of injuries in the past, but he totally looks the part now. Anyway, they get mixed up on the back end. It's not a surprise. I think the linebackers and the safeties, it's all kind of new. A lot of the guys that were supposed to be there have been injured. They just lose people in coverage and they give up these back-breaking huge plays. So I expect with Kingsbury, some of those kind of mesh patterns when he puts 2-3 guys in one spot. Watch out for McCaffrey and Zacchaeus. They're going to be running free, like at the right place, right time, especially if you have this kind of run game that's rolling and you bring Carolina up a little bit. These linebackers are going to lose these guys. So I kind of expect a big day out of either McCaffrey or Zacchaeus. I couldn't tell you which one, but I have a feeling they're going to have 2 or 3 wide open streaking plays across the field because Carolina is just losing people in coverage right now.
I also thought it was interesting, too, Cliff Kingsbury bringing up McCaffrey yesterday. I forget who had asked him the question about him, but basically it was like, this guy goes so hard, we need to tell him to slow down. And I was like, when coaches go out of their way to kind of talk about a player like that, it means that they're talking about him this week to do something. And I was like, okay, I'll eye McCaffrey here because it looks like they're going to give him a look or two.
I see it too. I think they want to reward him. He's been great with all the chip blocking and all the physical stuff that they've asked him to do, and they can reward him a little bit in routes. So I think it's going to be one of those two. I couldn't tell you who, but I think it's going to be one of those two. Carolina's just losing people in coverage. So I expect one of those two to kind of be the beneficiary of all that. All right, last thing, I just want to mention this real quick. It's Darrell Green's day on Sunday as well. Darrell Green is getting the key to the city from Muriel Bowser tomorrow. And then Sunday halftime, remember the game's 4:05 kickoff. So 5:30 or so, they'll be doing the ceremony to celebrate him. Somebody said it the other day, was like, he's on Mount Rushmore. I agree. I think if you were to pick who are the 4 faces of it, Joe Gibbs is definitely one of them. I think Darrell Green is definitely one of them. The other 2, I think, are arguable about who those 2 are. But I think Darrell Green, it's a no-brainer. 20 years in the league, excelled at his position, had so many major historic moments during his run with the franchise. There's probably nobody that deserves, and what a wonderful man and all the things that he's done off of the field. I can't think of anyone who in every way, shape, and form deserves this more to be immortalized this way.
No, and you want to talk about a sport that was more violent back then than it was now, to last for 20 years in that position is ridiculous. And to me, Darrell is, because he played so long, he does this thing where he's kind of transcended a few generations too. Like, I was there for his last game. I distinctly remember being there for his last game. I'm a millennial. Like, we don't have much to cheer on, but I remember kind of saying goodbye to that era. And like, oh, by the way, he was on a Super Bowl team as well. I think having him play that long and having that longevity and being as good as he was, just like adds to his legend. And I always like to remind people, there was a time where Darrell Green, Deion Sanders, and Champ Bailey were all the cornerbacks on the Redskins at one point in time. Like, that's ridiculous. So, yes. And as you said, a wonderful man, one of the nicest human beings. I've met him a few times. He's always great.
This was back when I was covering the team as a beat reporter when he retired. And I'll never forget, like, his last game, he came into the final press conference wearing his jersey. Everyone knew, they knew before the season it got out that he was going to retire.
Yeah, it was a huge ceremony and everything. Season.
Yeah. And he came out in his jersey, he came in the press conference, and I'll never forget, I got to ask him. I asked him a question. I said, you've done this for 20 years. It's pretty clear you're going to be in the Hall of Fame, and you're one of the greats of this organization. But 20 years from now, what do you want people to think of you? And he went on this very long, answer about mission and religion and, helping America's youth. And he basically, he kind of knew that he used the platform to get into a space to do the work that was really important. And listen, don't get me wrong. He likes being Darrell Green. He likes being loved. He likes knowing that he's one of the greatest to ever put on this uniform, or really any uniform as a cornerback. But I think he always knew where his priorities were, and he's lived up to them. Because 20 years later, yes, we're going to celebrate a football career that was like any other. But if you really look at what he's done with the last 20 years of his life, it's so much more important. And it's amazing. So he accomplished all of his goals. It's a life well lived for Darrell Green. And it'd be nice to see him this weekend and see him and celebrate his jersey being retired. Because I wouldn't say overdue, because this team hadn't really been doing that. When people say it's overdue, I'm like, well, until a couple of years ago, we'd never done that before. But, but it's definitely a warranted honor for him, for sure.
To piggyback off that too, I don't know if you saw the clip of PTI of Mike Wilbon and Tony actually like saying that they couldn't wait to see this happen as well. And all I could think of was like, man, it takes a lot for those two old guys to actually go back to the Redskins days and talk about how great one of the players was. And that's all I thought was, yeah, it means Darrell Green's pretty special when Wilbon and Tony take a couple minutes on the show to actually acknowledge what's about to happen on Sunday.
I don't think it's this year, but I can feel Tony wants to start the bandwagon up. I can feel it. I can feel it. So the juices are flowing, they're starting to get that old feeling again. And maybe next summer, a win or two, and we might get a couple of guest columns out of the blue, out of old TK might be time to strike up the bandwagon again. So we'll see.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. All right. Let me take a quick break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let's get into the rest of week 7. We did have Al's nightmare game last night, a crappy matchup between Denver and New Orleans, and Spencer Rattler, who is not ready for prime time, a Saints team that didn't feel like playing very much at home, should have been booed off of the field, the effort they put out there. And old Shawnee P gets to go home and get a big fat win against a team that looked like they were quitting in the middle of the season. It was pretty bad.
I know someone that was at this game last night, and they were taking, like a panoramic video, and it was like the second quarter, and it was like half full. And I was like, dude, what's going on? He's like, this crowd knows when they don't have a team that's really worth going crazy for. And I was like, well, okay, at least you guys know down there, because that was bad.
Would they score like 80 points in the first 2 weeks? It was something like that.
Yep.
And since it's been a dud. So
can't trust them.
No, you can't trust them. Right. We've learned that. You can't trust them.
Nope.
You're like, this is one of those. This is on the schedule. Wish we were playing them next week. We'd kill them. We're not playing them for 8 weeks. So I'm like, oh, who knows? You don't know what they're going to be by the time you get around to them again.
Right.
See. All right, let's see. London gets a clunker in the Patriots and Jaguars. Jaguars, I assume, just stayed there for the week because they played last week. They were run off the field last week. Now they get to play a team that I guess has a better chance of scoring now that Drake May's starting. But this is awful. So sorry, London, our bad.
This isn't even the worst one. This isn't even the worst game because the Giants are playing someone terrible too. I forget what game that is coming up. The Giants, maybe it's
in London. That might be Germany.
I think this is
the last London
You're right.
game.
You're right. It's Germany. Yeah. It's Giants. Somebody. I think it's Giants-Panthers. I'm pretty sure that's what it is because everybody was like, "Oh God, like why did they make that one on the schedule?" But yeah, as far as this one goes, here's my dream one here because I'm a Trev hater at this point. I hope Drake May goes crazy in this game. And he just makes Trevor look stupid. That's my hope for this game. Because
isn't Mac Jones on the Jaguars too? They should make Mac Jones play against the Patriots. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, I'm full Trev hater now. So like I hope the Pats just go crazy on them.
I'll be interested to hear. That's a good autopsy. Why are the Jaguars bad now? I'd like to get that autopsy at something like the Saints. I could see it kind of, especially if Carr got hurt. I could see it slipping. And like, who believes in Carr anyway? But like but the Jaguars one makes no sense. Like, they just extended Trevor, like, which didn't totally make a ton of sense, but whatever. Like, they don't have anybody better than him. And it's really bad, like really bad with them. So I'll be waiting for the autopsy on that one. We'll see. All right, let's see. Here's a good one. Seahawks and Falcons. Who I describe this as the battle of NFC playoff non-contenders. One or both could be in the playoffs. Neither will be in the Super Bowl. That's how I kind of look at it with both of them. Like, both of them could be in the playoffs. Neither one of them will actually play in the Super Bowl. That's how I look at both of them.
I could see the Falcons on a perfect path getting there. The Seahawks, absolutely not.
Kirk would have to have the miracle run in January. Correct. I think he'd have to be outrageously good for them to get to the Super Bowl, which I guess is possible because he has 500-yard games in his bag. So I guess it's possible, but I don't think their defense is nearly good enough to actually get there in the end.
No, Atlanta would need like the 10 coin flips to go in a row to go ahead and go to the Super Bowl. Like I acknowledge that, but I don't think the Seahawks have a real chance, especially with how bad Geno looked against San Fran last week. That was god awful. He didn't look like a professional quarterback, but for the Falcons, I don't know if you're noticing this too. Like Kirk is starting to pick up like the ATL slang and he's doing the swag surf off the field. I'm just saying, you know how this works in sports. When the magic starts to, to percolate just a little bit, I'm just saying, I think there's a little bit there with Atlanta and Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, he's buying into nerd at the club.
Yes.
I appreciate that a little bit.
Did you hear him yesterday? Yeah, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago. He was like, well, in the most white way possible. He goes, well, one of my old teammates in Minnesota, he used to say, walk in your trap, take over your trap. So, it just means go into somebody's stadium and take it over. And I'm like, I can't believe Kirk is quoting this right now. And it's amazing.
Kirk is a total nerd. But you know what? He knows that. He's using it to his advantage. He's being authentically himself in all of it. And I appreciate it. See, Dan, he wasn't the nerd you thought he was. See? Like, he's a nerd, yes, but he knew how to play nerd. It's amazing. He's turned into quite the personality in the NFL. And he's a good player.
Agree. He's a good guy too. I think that helps.
By the way, I'll take Atlanta this week because it's in Atlanta. So I'll take Atlanta to knock off Seattle. I'm with you. I think the Seahawks are not quite ready for prime time. And so I'll take Atlanta here to outscore them. I bet you it's a pretty high scoring game. 34-27, something like that. I'll go something like that. Let's see. Bills and the Bengals should both roll. Bills get Tennessee and the Bengals get the Browns, who are sellers and still publicly saying that Deshaun Watson gives them the best chance to win, which he does not. I think Cleveland, personally, we talked about this yesterday with the trade deadline stuff. I think personally, they have signaled we're going to give up on the season. I mean, they already got rid of Amari Cooper. They're just giving away a couple defensive pieces away from saying we're going to tank. and find Deshaun's replacement, Shador Sanders, Carson Beck, whoever it may be, Cam Ward, whoever they think it is, they're positioning themselves to be high in the draft. Bengals are going to kill them, and Bills ought to beat up on Tennessee. Albeit, though, I would buy that game's a little closer, but I think both of them should roll this weekend.
We'll continue on. Will Levis is playing, so therefore they don't have a chance. That's been, my mantra since the season started. And then for the Browns side of things, by the way, if I'm a Browns fan now, I'm saying start Deshaun. He sucks. He is the worst quarterback in the league. We're full tank season here. Like, that's fine at this point. Like, you want to find the replacement. You and I have had this discussion a million times over the years about the Wizards, how the Wizards would always middle and never be bad enough to get the good player or good enough to ever be a championship team. The Browns are kind of just saying to you, we're going to keep starting Deshaun because we're paying him and he sucks. And we know we're just going to keep losing games. Like,
too.
Yeah, right.
They're stuck with him, and they're stuck with him. They need, I don't know. I mean, the only way out of it is there needs to be another allegation that sticks, because that's how they get out of the contract. Otherwise, no one's trading for him, obviously. So they're stuck with him for 2 more years. But you could go find your next rookie quarterback and just play him.
Right.
And you have to bench the guy, which I think is what's going to happen. Let's see. Here's a good one this weekend. The Stroud-Love showdown at Lambeau, Houston and Green Bay. I'm sure there are some people in both places that think this is a Super Bowl preview. And I'm not so sure that they're totally off in thinking that way. I think the path for Houston's a lot harder than the path for Green Bay. But, miracles can happen, and this might be. It's a possibility. If it's not this year, it's a possibility over the next 5 years that these two are playing for all the marbles at some point in time. So this will be a good first look at that one.
No, this to me is like next gen NFL primetime matchup, essentially. And I also want to say shout out to former Capital Ken Sabrin, who's on our radio broadcast. He's missing our game in Saturday to go to Green Bay to go to this game. So, I hope Green Bay wins.
Well, he's a big Packers
Huge
fan?
Packers fan. He used to play in Milwaukee in the minor leagues. So he became a Packers fan. So
isn't he from like Western Canada?
Yeah, but he played all around his whole career was all over the place, and he played in Milwaukee. So when he played in Milwaukee, the Packers became his team.
He was a big Edmonton Eskimos fan. Not a big Edmonton Eskimos fan?
That's a CFL team. It's different leagues, man. Come on. It's not the same. So,
yeah. He's like, shut up. I like the Rough Riders.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah, this will be a good one. This one's worth watching. I'll be checking this one out before we get into our matchup. And in the same vein, very interested to see next week what happens with how it's covered, like the Jaden Caleb first of many type of coverage, because now that they're both 4-2 and one hopefully is going to be 5-2, we'll have to see. Let's see. Our red zone specials this week are Dolphins Colts and Rams Raiders. I'm surprised that the red zone especially involved Miami and the Rams. If you told me in the summer that those two would kind of be also Rams for different reasons, I wouldn't have believed you. Like, I actually thought Miami with Tua healthy was going to be competing to win that division. That's clearly not going to happen now. And the Rams, I thought, could be the surprise leapfrog the Niners team, and that's not happening this year. I do trust that McVay will keep them very competitive, keep them going, and probably play meaningful football in December. But I think the gig is up on them being the surprise NFC champion. I don't buy that any longer.
Yeah, agreed. This one's going to be ugly. I would expect the Colts to beat the Dolphins, and I would expect the Rams to be the professional team because the Raiders have pretty much packed it in for the rest of the season.
The Lions have had a rough schedule, but they've passed almost every test. Now they get a 5-0 team. So I think this is more about the Vikings. Let's see it, boys. Let's see what you got against the team you have to beat if you're going to get where you think you're going to go to. So very, very interested. Boy, the Lions are must-see TV. Very, very interested in this one.
This is the best game on the slate for the weekend because it's everything. Do the Lions continue to roll like they did last week? Do the Vikings show that they're for real? What does that Vikings defense? Are they able to stop that Lions offense? Like, that's going to be a very fun matchup between Flores and Johnson there. Like, I think that's going to be really fun. This division is the best one in football, and we get our first huge matchup this week, and I cannot wait to watch this one.
I think the Lions are still a little ahead of them. The Vikings I've been very impressed by. I'll pick Detroit. I don't like the Hutchinson injury, but until proven otherwise, they're a worthy favorite. They've earned that. So I will pick Detroit until shown otherwise. I'll pick Detroit. Let's see. Giants and Eagles this weekend. Nick, watch out for Section 112. Those fans might get pissed. Let's see. Dayball, who I think universally people are looking at going, guy's a pretty good coach, not playing with a full deck of cards, especially when guys like Neighbors have been out. And I think that they're being, I think the Giants fans are being, okay, we get it. Like, it's not like Salah. We get it. Like, you're a good coach. You need a better team, maybe better quarterback. We get it. The Eagles fans are like, this guy, I don't know, man. He's gone full Britney. Like, we don't like what's going on with this guy. He looks crazy, sounds crazy. He's doing crazy things. Give me the Giants this weekend because I want to see it spin. I want to see it spin out of control. And they almost lost to Cleveland at home. So don't even pretend like it can't happen. Give me the Giants to knock them off in some dumb, low-scoring game. And the Philly people freak out this week.
Do you want my stat of the week on this one? The Eagles haven't given up or haven't scored more than 21 points since week 1. And the Giants have given up 21 points in every game. So, what happens?
Yeah.
Because, and then, when I saw that stat, it was on Twitter and someone said, 14-7 Eagles. Like that's what it'll end up being. And they're still going to be pissed. So
so the Giants easily could have won the game here because Washington couldn't score in the red zone. Remember Malik Neighbors dropped a pass that if he didn't drop it, I'm not sure that Washington would have won. Like, it would at least gone to overtime. Well, actually, that's not true. They didn't have their kicker. They would have had to have gone for a touchdown. So I don't know how that would have ended up. They would have, could have, should have beat Dallas on that Thursday night game. They had every opportunity to do it and didn't do it. They could easily, after this weekend, be 3-0 in the division. They'll probably be 0-3, but they could be 3-0. But I believe it. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to knock the Eagles off because they're so messed up right now. So we'll see. This one, here's bold take for you. This will not be the Super Bowl again. Chiefs 49ers. They will not be facing each other in the Super Bowl again this year. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if neither one of them is in the Super Bowl this year. I think Detroit's the front runner, albeit that Hutchinson injury is a big deal. You don't replace guys like that. So I think that's a really big deal. So we'll see how Dan Campbell handles all of that. But they look the part. They're toying with people. They totally look the part. I think Detroit's ready. So if it's not them, I feel like it could be Green Bay. I don't believe San Francisco this year because of all the injuries. They'll probably be a playoff team, and they may even win that division again. But I don't buy them to get through again. I probably shouldn't say that, but and I'll eat my words on it. But I like a couple other teams better than them. And with the Chiefs, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the Super Bowl again because it's Mahomes and Andy Reid and all that stuff. But after seeing Baltimore in person, I actually think they've got the unstoppable thing this year. And unless there's injuries to Derrick Henry or something like that, I got a hard time seeing anybody keep up with them scoring. So I'm not sure I buy really. Well, I totally buy Kansas City getting back. And I could hear out the case on San Francisco. I don't think this will happen again. I don't think they'll be playing each other in the Super Bowl this year.
No, I think the Niners they seem off this season. So I think it's more on the Niners than it is the Chiefs. The Chiefs, it's funny. They have not looked great, yet they still are beating everybody. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs are there. It's the Niners side of things on that one.
And then Sunday night, we get darkness versus Let's Ride. It's the Jets and the Steelers. First look at Russ. Hard to know what you're going to get, honestly, in this offense. He is a capable quarterback. I know nobody wants to hear that, but he is. The Rodgers and company were very competitive against the Bills in the first deal under the new interim coach. I don't buy them. I think Pittsburgh's defense shows up. Devontae Adams showed up. Rodgers going to be forcing the ball to him. He doesn't even know the plays. Give me Pittsburgh here in probably a lowish scoring game because I don't know that they're going to score a lot with the quarterback coming in and the Jets defense is legitimately good. But give me Pittsburgh here, 17-13. That's what I like. That's what I think.
I'll go Jets here only because I think it's going to be a close game and I trust Rodgers more than I trust Russ. That's it. That's that. There's nothing more than that. I think if it's a close game, one possession game, Rodgers can orchestrate that comeback. Russ cannot.
Maybe.
Give me Jets 17, Steelers 13. Yeah.
There's some kind of spell over the Jets though. It's been for a long time and now they're putting the spell on themselves by doing the things that they're doing. And in games where they're playing teams that could be playoff teams, I don't trust them. So that's why I'll take Pittsburgh here. All right, let me take a quick break. Bray wants to show ESPN 630 Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Someone needs to explain to me what Tony Bennett's doing. He just left 3 weeks before the college basketball season starts to retire. And all I knew as of the time that we're doing this is that it's not health related, which is the good news. It feels a little Jay Wright, Coach K, Nick Saban, maybe even more Jay Wright, because Coach K and Nick Saban are older gentlemen. Tony Bennett is still in the prime years of performing, and it feels like, unless he says otherwise, it feels like he's just walking because he hates the state of play, that he doesn't like what it takes to keep teams together, what it takes to compete, how the landscape has changed. And he's like, I'm out. I can't deal with it. He's probably got kids walking in and out of his office asking for money. He wants to go to the portal. I don't blame him. It's the Wild West, and the rules are different. And if the rules aren't working in your favor, or you don't have your arms wrapped around them, you're going to have a hard time winning. And I think the last thing he wants to do is be the coach who middles all the time. So that's why I think he's going to say why he's leaving.
I would agree with you too. It's also worth reminding he got his extension over this off season too. Like, they made sure that he was okay. Because I remember you and I were kind of kicking around. Does he go somewhere else with the way UVA's NIL stuff has worked out lately? Right. I think this is just a bad mix for Bennett and how he wins. Right? Like, look at Virginia as a program and how he coaches and how he runs things. They run a low tempo style, defensive style that is slow and not flashy, so it's hard to get players. And how did Bennett get successful? It was by having underclassmen in his system and playing for 3 and 4 years. So by the time, guys were graduating, he had guys ready to step in. It was a very unconventional way to win him college basketball. It got him a national championship, but it was slow and methodical and defensive. And he had guys that had been working for 2, 3, and 4 years. I couldn't think of a more opposite way that the college basketball landscape is now. Like, it's just not his style is literally outdated now.
You can get a lot of players to play in it. You can't get any of the top ones to play in it.
Yep.
And then unless you have a large, like assembly line of boosters and money, and they don't have that as far as I can tell. So they're in no man's land, and this is a bad sign for that program, obviously, because he's walking on the assumption that I think he's going to say, I can't win here under this landscape, which means if he can't, it's going to be hard for anybody else to do it. And, then you got to replicate. I believe the coaching matters on these levels more than most other places. And if you don't have a top tier coach like this, it's going to be hard to recruit, to bring people in if you're not flushing money down the toilet at them. So, we'll see what he does. Maybe he goes the Jay Wright route and goes on TV and goes, you know what? I like this sport. Here's how I can contribute. And maybe he takes a year off and some other bigger program somehow gets him to come in. But to your point, I don't know that anyone's going to love the way he plays because the kids don't like the way he plays. And it takes money to get the kids now. And, they're like, yeah, right. Like, what's his selling point? Come here. I'll pay you a small amount of money to sit on the bench and watch all these other people play this system. And once you learn it, I'll pay you a middle-ish amount of money to actually star in it. But, unless you're Malcolm Brogdon, you're not going to have a big NBA career. But trust me, you might win an NCAA championship. It's a tough sell. It is.
Yeah, I don't see it working out for him in the long run. Maybe someone gives him a chance somewhere else. But I also just look at this as well for him as it's a little Jay Wright, like you were saying too. I just think some of these coaches, they know when they don't want to do this anymore. 3 weeks before the season tells me a lot. Like, your recruiting is done with. Your NIL stuff is done with. To do this at this time, that tells me your heart isn't in it. And, all the more power to you that you can do that. But the timing of this is actually probably the most shocking way of all of it.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not too pleased today that he made that decision today and didn't make it before he signed an extension 3 months ago. But, hey, the heart tells you what the heart wants. All right, real quick, let's see. Caps beat the Stars last night, had a big second period. I saw the majority of it. I'm not surprised. I think I said this to you, like when we did the season preview a week ago. I said, I like this line with Wilson, Pierre-Luc Dubois and Connor McMichael, like just on paper, that sounds formidable. And it has been here early. Like Wilson had another goal. He scored in every game, right?
Yep.
He had another goal, and he should have had a second where he got a great pass from Pierre-Luc Dubois and like did a drag and just missed an open net. Like he could have had 2 last night. I love that line.
Not only that, that line is sneaky defensive too. Connor McMichael is really turning into a really good two-way center now. And Dubois, I'm glad he finally got on the score sheet. Watch this guy away from the puck. It's starting to blow my mind actually why his reputation was what it was. He likes to go into the corner and battle and do a little bit of the dirty stuff. If they make the playoffs, this is like the perfect playoff line with Wilson, Dubois, and McMichael. I really like this line. And what they're doing too is they're alleviating the pressure off the quote unquote first line with Ovechkin and those guys. I like the way that they're playing. What I actually like the most these last 2 games is you have 2 very good opponents in Dallas and in Vegas who have a ton of offensive firepower. They've scored and locked down. And they were helter-skelter last year when it came to that. This year, through 2 really good opponents. By the way, both opponents were undefeated coming in this week as well. They played really well, locked down defensively, not only on the forward side, but on the D-core as well. The D-core looks really good this early on in the season. I am pleasantly surprised about how well it's going because these aren't like last year where they would score 3, the other team would score 2, and then it's hold on to your butts for a period and a half and hope that, Lindgren makes a bunch of good saves. They've played really sound, really well these first 3, but these last 2 have been really, really good.
The last 4 minutes yesterday was hold on to your butts because they got a late power play and then they went 6-on-5 and they possessed in the zone for like the last minute. So it was, but they only got 1 or 2 real decent towards Lindgren last night. So it was a good win for them. And they get the Devils this weekend, who they already played once and lost to earlier this year. All right, everybody have a great weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday. Brave, watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports